The visionaries canvassed the crimson sands of Kithara, whispered secrets to those who knew how to listen. Zara pressed her six-fingered hand against the cool stone wall of her sanctuary, feeling the vibrations of distant explosions. The war between her people, the Valthani, and the encroaching Sekthare had raged for 3 cycles now, turning their once peaceful world into a battlefield of shattered crystals and burning cities in the dim light filtering through her underground chamber. Zara's luminescent skin cast an ethereal glow across dozens of canvases. Each painting told a story, some of the past, others of futures yet to unfold. Her gift had manifested early, the ability to see beyond the present moment, to capture glimpses of what was, what could be, and what must be. Tonight, however, something different called to her. The brushes seemed to move of their own accord as she mixed pigments from rare minerals found deep beneath Kithara's surface. The colors swirled together, flesh tones she'd never seen before. Hair the color of burnt amber, eyes like summer sky on a world that knew only eternal twilight. She painted for hours, lost in a trance-like state. The figure that emerged was unlike any Valthani she'd ever known. Where her people were tall and willowy, with elongated limbs and translucent skin, this being was compact, solid, radiating a warmth that seemed to leap from the canvas. His face held a strength that spoke of endurance, of hope in the face of impossible odds. Human, she whispered, though she'd never seen one. The word came from deep within her consciousness, as if planted there by the same force that guided her brush. The painting showed him standing against a backdrop of stars, one hand extended as if reaching for something just beyond the frame. His expression was kind yet determined, carrying the weight of someone who had seen darkness but chose to be light. Around his feet, small flowers bloomed in impossible colors, symbols of life persisting against all odds. As dawn approached, Zara stepped back from her work, exhausted but exhilarated. The human in her painting seemed almost alive, his eyes following her movements around the room. She'd painted him armor that gleamed with unknown metals, bearing symbols that meant nothing to her but somehow felt significant. "My dream protector," she murmured, touching the canvas gently. In her war-torn world, where safety was a luxury few could afford, she'd created an image of perfect security. This human, this impossible being, represented everything her people needed: strength without cruelty, protection without domination. The sound of approaching aircraft broke her reverie. Zara quickly covered the painting with a cloth, her heart racing. The Sekthari had been sweeping the outer settlements, searching for survivors. She grabbed her emergency pack and headed for the deeper tunnels, but not before casting one last glance at the covered canvas. Something told her that this painting was different from all the others. Where her previous works had shown distant futures or forgotten pasts, this one felt immediate, urgent, as if the universe itself was preparing for something extraordinary to unfold. The crash from heaven, the explosion that shook Kithara 3 days later, was unlike anything the war had produced. Instead of the sharp crack of plasma weapons or the rumble of siege engines, this was a roar that seemed to tear through the very fabric of space itself. Zara felt it in her bones, a vibration that made her prophetic senses scream with anticipation. She emerged from her tunnel system to find the settlement in chaos. The Valthani villagers pointed toward the eastern cliffs, where a pillar of strange blue smoke rose into the vermilion sky. Elder Quinn, his ancient face creased with worry, approached her with urgent steps. "The sky fire fell near the crystal caves," he said, his voice trembling. "The impact shattered the barrier stones. We're exposed to Sekthari scanning now." Zara's mind raced. The barrier stones had protected their small community for months, their unique electromagnetic properties masking their presence from enemy sensors. Without them, they had perhaps hours before discovery. "I'll investigate," she said, already moving toward the crash site. Something deep within her demanded she be the one to face whatever had fallen from the stars. The journey to the cliffs took her through terrain, scarred by war crystalline formations, melted into glass sculptures, vegetation twisted into unnatural shapes by exotic radiation. But as she drew closer to the impact site, the devastation seemed to lessen, as if whatever had crashed carried with it a healing presence. The crater was massive, easily 50 meters across, but strangely, the destruction didn't radiate outward as expected. Instead, the ground around the impact showed signs of restoration. Withered plants had begun to sprout new growth, and the air itself seemed cleaner. More vibrant dot at the center of the crater lay a vessel unlike anything in Valthani or Sekthari. Fleets. Its hull was scarred and blackened, but its design spoke of incredible sophistication. Flowing lines suggested it was built not just for function, but for beauty, a philosophy her people understood, but had nearly forgotten in their struggle for survival. As Zara approached, a section of the hull split open with a soft hiss. Escaped, carrying with it sense of distant worlds, ozone and metal, but also something organic, alive. Her hearts, both primary and secondary, began racing as a figure stumbled from the wreckage. He was exactly as she had painted him, the human, for she knew with absolute certainty that's what he was stood unsteadily, his amber hair catching the light of Kithara's twin suns. His blue eyes, still dazed from the crash, swept the landscape before settling on her. In that moment, Zara felt the universe shift around them, as if two previously separate destinies had suddenly clicked into alignment. "You," he said, his voice carrying an accent she'd never heard but somehow understood. I dreamed of you." Zara's hand instinctively moved to her satchel, where she'd hidden the painting. This was impossible. Her gift had shown her the past and future, but never had she painted something into existence. Yet here stood her dream protector, real and breathing, looking at her with the same expression of wonder she must be wearing. "What are you?" she whispered. He took a step closer, and she noticed he moved with the same careful grace she'd captured in her painting. "I'm Marcus," he said, "and I have no idea how I got here." The weight of Destiny Marcus's arrival sent shockwaves through the settlement that had nothing to do with his ship's impact. The Valthani gathered in the central plaza, their luminescent skin flickering with emotions ranging from fear to fascination. Zara watched from the shadows as Elder Quinn questioned the human, her secret painting burning like a guilty conscience in her mind. "Your people," Quinn said, his voice carrying the weight of centuries. "They are the ones who brought war to our sector. The Sekthari claim they fight to protect us from human expansion." Marcus ran a hand through his hair, a gesture so familiar it made Zara's breath catch. She'd painted him doing exactly that in a preliminary sketch she'd hidden beneath the main canvas. "I don't remember," Marcus said, frustration evident in his voice. "I remember training, preparing for something important, but then ... nothing. I woke up in that ship with coordinates for this world burned into my mind." "Convenient," muttered Kale, one of the younger Valthani. His bioluminescent patches pulsed with suspicion. "A human warrior appears just as our defenses fail. This reeks of deception." Zara stepped forward before she could stop herself. "He's not lying," she said, then immediately regretted speaking. All eyes turned to her, and she felt the weight of their collective gaze. "How can you be certain?" Quinn asked gently. He'd always been kind to her, understanding the burden her gift carried. She couldn't tell them about the painting. "Not yet. My sight," she said instead. "I can see the truth as words." "He's as confused as we are." Marcus's eyes met hers across the plaza, and she saw something there, gratitude, but also a deep, inexplicable recognition. As if he'd been searching for her his entire life without knowing it. That evening, as the settlement prepared for possible evacuation. Zara found herself alone with Marcus near the Crystal Gardens. The war hadn't reached this place yet, and the formations still hummed with their natural harmonics, creating a symphony of light and sound. "Tell me about your world," she said, settling beside him on a carved stone bench. "I wish I could," he replied, staring up at the unfamiliar constellations. "It's like trying to remember a dream. I know I had a life, a purpose, but the details ... He gestured helplessly. "What I do remember is you." Zara's heart skipped. "Me? In my dreams before. I woke up in that ship, a beautiful being with skin like starlight, painting in a room filled with visions. You were always just out of reach, but I knew I had to find you." The weight of her secret felt crushing. Had her painting somehow called to him across the vast emptiness of space? The possibility terrified her. Her gift was supposed to reveal destiny, not create it. "Marcus," she began, then stopped as the ground beneath them began to vibrate. In the distance, the distinctive whine of Sekthari aircraft filled the air. "They've found us," she whispered. Marcus stood, his posture shifting into something that spoke of military training. He couldn't remember. "How long do we have?" "Minutes, maybe less." Zara grabbed his hand, surprised by the warmth of his skin. "There's something I need to show you first." She led him through the winding passages to her hidden chamber, her mind racing. If they were about to face the Sekthari, he deserved to know the truth. As she uncovered the painting, Marcus's sharp intake of breath confirmed what she already knew. "That's impossible," he breathed, reaching toward the canvas but stopping just short of touching it. "I painted this before you arrived," Zara said, her voice barely audible above the approaching aircraft. "I've never seen a human before, never even heard of your species until tonight. But somehow, I knew you were coming." Marcus stared at the painting, then at her, his blue eyes wide with wonder and something that might have been fear. "What does this mean?" Before she could answer, the first explosions began rocking the settlement above. The Sekthari had arrived, and with them, the moment of truth that would determine whether Marcus was truly her dream protector or something far more dangerous. The prophecy unfolds. The Sekthari ships descended like metallic vultures, their plasma cannons turning the night sky into a tapestry of destruction. Zara and Marcus raced through the collapsing tunnels as the settlement burned above them, her painting clutched desperately in her arms. "This way," she gasped, leading him toward the emergency bunkers where the other Valfani had taken shelter. But as they approached the main chamber, Marcus suddenly grabbed her arm. "Wait," he said, his voice taking on a quality she'd never heard before, commanding. "Sure. They're not just attacking randomly. They're herding you toward something." "How could you possibly know that?" Marcus's eyes had changed, becoming sharper, more focused. "Because I remember now. Not everything, but enough." He turned to her, and she saw pain in his expression. "I'm not just a human, Zara. I'm a weapon." The words hit her like a physical blow. "What?" The Sekthari weren't lying about human expansion. "My people, we've been developing soldiers designed to infiltrate and pacify resistant populations. I was engineered to be irresistible to alien psychics, to make them trust me, follow me." His voice broke. "I was sent here to lead your people into a trap." Zara stared at him, her mind reeling. The painting in her arms suddenly felt heavier, like it was made of lead instead of canvas and pigment. "So everything I felt, everything I painted, it was all programmed?" "No." Marcus stepped closer, his hand reaching for her face. "That's what I don't understand. The conditioning should have made me cold, calculating. But when I look at you, when I'm near you, I feel ... human. More human than I've ever felt." Above them, the sound of energy weapons grew closer. They were running out of time. "There's something else," Marcus continued urgently. "The reason I was sent here specifically. Human intelligence detected someone with powerful prophetic abilities. Someone who could see through our plans before they were implemented." He looked at her painting. "They want you alive, Zara. Everything else is expendable." The truth crashed over her like a cold wave. Her gift hadn't called Marcus to her world. It had painted him as a warning. The universe had been trying to tell her that her dream protector was actually her greatest threat. "But you told me the truth," she said, confusion warring with terror in her mind. "Why would you warn me if you're supposed to capture me?" Marcus's expression was tortured. "Because looking at you, being near you, it's breaking whatever they did to me. I can feel their programming fighting against something stronger." He gestured at the painting. "Maybe this is what real prophecy looks like, not just seeing the future, but changing it." The bunker doors burst open, and Sekthari soldiers poured in, their insectoid forms moving with terrifying efficiency. Behind them strode a figure that made Zara's blood freeze high. Commander Vex, whose reputation for cruelty was legendary even among his own people. "The human weapon appears to be malfunctioning," Vex hissed, his mandibles clicking with amusement. "No matter. We'll take the Prophet with or without his cooperation." That's when Marcus moved. His conditioning might have been breaking, but his physical modifications were still intact. He moved faster than Zara's eyes could follow, his body becoming a blur of lethal efficiency. The first 3 Sekthari soldiers were down before they could react, their weapons scattered across the chamber floor. "Run!" Marcus shouted, grabbing one of the falling plasma rifles. "Get to the deep caves. Not without you." Zara clutched the painting, her mind racing. There had to be another way, something her gift could show her dot as Marcus held off the Sekthari soldiers. Fighting with skills he was only now remembering, Zara stared at her painting. In the chaos of battle, she noticed something she'd missed. Before a small detail in the background, nearly hidden among the stars. Another figure, shadowy and indistinct, reaching toward her dream protector. The painting wasn't just showing her Marcus. It was showing her a choice. And perhaps, if she was brave enough to make it, a way to save them both. The choice between worlds as plasma fire scorched the air around them. Zara made a decision that would echo across the stars. She pressed her palm against the painting, feeling the strange energy that had guided her brush flow through her once. More. But this time, instead of seeing the future, she reached out to change it. The painting began to glow, its colors shifting and swirling like a living thing. The shadowy figure in the background became clearer. It was her, but not as she was now. This version of herself stood taller, more confident, with power radiating from her form like heat from a star. "Zara, what are you doing?" Marcus called out, still fighting the advancing Sekthari. "What I should have done from the beginning," she replied, her voice carrying a resonance that made the very air vibrate. "I painted you into existence once. Now I'm going to paint us both free." High Commander Vex's compound eyes fixed on her with sudden alarm. "Stop her. She's using her abilities." But it was too late. The painting's glow intensified, and suddenly the chamber was filled with light, not the harsh glare of plasma weapons, but something warm and golden that seemed to come from within the very walls. The Sekthari soldiers stumbled, their optical sensors overwhelmed. While Marcus stood protected within the radiance, Zara felt the universe bend around her will. Her gift had always been to see what was written in the stars, but now she understood that she could also rewrite those stories. The painting showed her 2 futures: one, where Marcus completed his mission and her people fell to human expansion, and another where love triumphed over programming, where 2 species found common ground instead of conquest. "I choose the second path," she whispered, and reality shifted. The light exploded outward, washing over the settlement, the Sekthari ships, and beyond. Where it touched, weapons powered down. Soldiers remembered why they'd originally chosen to fight, for peace rather than conquest, and the artificial programming in Marcus's mind shattered like glass. When the light faded, the silence was profound. The Sekthari soldiers stood motionless, their aggression replaced by confusion. High Commander Vex stared at Zara with something approaching fear. "What have you done?" he demanded. "I've given everyone a choice," she replied, her voice steady despite her exhaustion. "The same choice Marcus made when he chose to warn me instead of capture me. The same choice you can make now." Marcus stepped up beside her, his hand finding hers. "I remember everything now," he said quietly. "What they made me, what they wanted me to do. But I also remember what I chose to become." He looked at Zara with eyes clear of all artificial influence. "I choose to be human, really human." Elder. Quinn emerged from the deeper tunnels, his ancient face creased with wonder. "The prophecy," he murmured. "It was never about destruction. It was about transformation." Over the following days, as news of the event spread across the galaxy, something unprecedented began to happen. The artificial divisions between species started to break down. Humans who had been conditioned for conquest began to question their programming. Sekthari, who had been told humans were monsters, started to see them as people. The Valfani, no longer hiding, began to share their gifts with others. Zara's painting, now permanently changed by her intervention, showed something new, not just Marcus, but representatives of dozens of species standing together beneath the stars. It had become a map of what was possible when beings chose connection over conquest. Was it destiny? Marcus asked one evening as they watched the sunset from the Crystal Gardens, now rebuilt and more beautiful than ever. Zara considered the question, her finger tracing the edge of the painting that had started it all. "I think destiny is what we make it," she said finally. "I painted you because I needed to see that hope was possible. You came because you needed to become more than what you were designed to be, and together we chose to make something better." The war was over not through victory or defeat, but through the simple recognition that everyone deserved the chance to choose their own path. Zara's gift had shown her that the greatest prophecies weren't about predicting the future, but about having the courage to create it. And in a universe where love could overcome programming, where art could reshape reality, and where a quiet alien girl could paint a better tomorrow into existence, anything was possible. The dream protector had become real, not as a weapon, but as a symbol of hope, proof that even in the darkest times, someone would always choose to stand for what was right.